Hey guys, welcome to an extra special episode of Humanized. Usually I have a guest, but this week I decided that I wanted to do a Q&A with you guys. I wanted to ask you guys what questions have been burning in your minds. What have you asked me in my DMs that I never got around to answering, and find out what you wanted to know. And one of the things I very quickly noticed was that 70, maybe 80% of the questions that I got were about the exact same thing. And so instead of doing a Q&A, I will be doing a Q&A for the other questions, but this one is going to be a story time all about the most popular question that I have been asked ad nauseum by all of the viewers of this show and a couple of my other shows that I'm on. How did you become so confident? If one more person asked me how I became so confident, I'm going to start wondering why you guys think I shouldn't be confident. But that's a whole other story for another time. If I keep it 100, I'm not stupid. I'm very, very clear that a lot of you have inquiries about my body positivity journey, how this chocolate, drop plus size girl started being so poppin'. And to be perfectly honest with you guys, it was a very bizarre journey. In fact, I'm probably going to call this video my bizarre body positivity journey, because whenever my friends find out how I got here, the first thing they say is, that is effing weird. So how did I become so body positive? So the first thing I'm going to say is, and this might be controversial, I do not think that everybody who is part of the body positivity movement is necessarily confident. A lot of people who are part of this movement are trying to be confident. They're on the journey and they're claiming things, right? A lot of people say fake it till you make it. I don't believe in fake it till you make it. I believe you claim it until you become it, right? So you're going to talk to some people who are all about body positivity, but behind closed doors, when you talk to them, you find out that they're deeply insecure, they're working through things, they're going through therapy, and that they're not as larger than life as they appear in public. Yeah, I'm not one of those people. When you get to know me, I'm actually just as confident behind the scenes. And that was a process. I'm going to take it back from the beginning because I feel like I want you guys to understand just how I got here, because you might see a piece of yourself in this narrative. So first things first, I am not from America. I think I've mentioned this like every single video I've made, because people usually think I'm African American. And even though I love African American culture and I love this country and I plan to be here for most of my life, I am very cognizant that being from Latin America, things are just done a little bit differently. And the immigrant struggle is very specific. And it's something that I always want to highlight in my programming. So I came to this country when I was about 3 years old, but I didn't live with my parents until I was about 7 or 8. A lot of times when immigrants come to this country, they have to send their children and then they come later. And that's a really real thing, because in the years between when I got here and when I finally had parents, I felt like an orphan. And when you feel like an orphan, you very quickly realize that you have to fend for yourself. So when I was 7 years old, something happened to me that I would not wish on any little girl living in an urban environment without any parents. My body came in. I had breasts and hips and a really small waist. I'm what they call traditional hourglass. For those of you who are not clear, an hourglass is someone whose waist is about 9 inches smaller than the rest of their body. So the top and the bottom are the same, but then once you get the waist in, it cinches in. When you are an adult, this is a beautiful thing to be. When you are 7 with 36 C-cup breasts, it's dangerous. And I very quickly started to realize as a child that even though I looked like a child, my body looked like a woman. And I was seeing the stares that I was getting from men in the neighborhood. My babysitter's brothers would always looking at me and leering at me. And I quickly assessed that I was not safe, surrounded by so many men without any parental guidance, because my aunt was always working. I love her, but she was working double shifts at the hospital. So I quickly realized that I was in danger. And a couple little girls in the neighborhood had actually been sexually assaulted, and I felt it in my bones that my time was coming. You know how now the word that they use is grooming? There were several men in the neighborhood who were grooming me, and I could just feel that this was going to go somewhere that was going to be really, really bad. And so at 7 years old, with a grown woman's body, I devised a plan. I noticed that the only little girls in the neighborhood who were not getting messed with were the fat ones. I know this is probably going to be jarring for some people, so I might want to do a trigger warning at some point. But I realized that there's different kinds of sexual predators. The ones that were in my neighborhood were very visual beings. If you had a woman's body, you were going to be treated like a woman whether you wanted to or not. And because of that, the little roly-poly girls, the little cherubic, cute little fat girls, they were safe. And because they were safe, I quickly assessed that I needed to become one of them as quickly as possible so that I could be safe too. And so for 3 months, mind you, I was 7, guys. For 3 months, every night I fed myself mashed potatoes and boxed mac and cheese and sweet peas from the freezer and made myself fat so I wouldn't get raped. Now, saying it now, it sounds scary and jarring, but back then I was just thinking about pure survival. Get fat as quickly as possible, no one will touch you. And I hate to say it, but it worked. The minute I got chubby and my face got really cherubic and I started looking like an actual child again, they left me alone. Now, instead of being the 7-year-old with the body, can you believe she's only 7? She got body for a 7-year-old. I was just a fat little girl that was funny and smart and capable and all the things that I had wanted to be seen for previously. And for years, this was my safety net. Making myself fat on purpose worked until I got to high school. Because the irony is, 7-year-old girls don't want to be looked at like that, but 13-year-old girls do. And suddenly I realized that being pretty and thin was a currency. So now I had a problem. I was like, I made myself fat on purpose, but now I'm in high school and everybody wants the body that I just worked so hard to get rid of. And so now I had to go to the other extreme. I became an anorexic. I developed a really, really bad eating disorder. I starved myself. I found other girls who were equally insecure. I actually was like the Regina George of our clique. I'm going to take responsibility for that in retrospect. And I convinced them to starve themselves with me. And every single day after school, we'd go to the gym and work out for like 2 or 3 hours. And then we'd go home and have a really anemic meal. And then the next day, go to school, gym, small meal, rinse, repeat. Quickly, I lost all that weight. But here's the thing though, when you lose weight because you want to be accepted, suddenly you convince yourself that everybody who loves you only loves you because of what you look like. For all of high school, I yo-yoed back and forth. The thing about an eating disorder is you lose the weight and then one day you get sad and you gain it back. And I created this really, really bad pattern of when I was sad, I would eat, right? That same little 7-year-old girl who was making mashed potatoes not to get raped, she would come back and I would sit there and I would binge and I would binge and I would binge. And then when I would feel better, I would starve myself and get attention from boys and feel pretty and feel cute. And it became really damaging. I had a lot of rage issues from the resentment I felt from all the years that my parents weren't there to protect me. I now know that I resent them for not being there to protect me. But as an adult, I can say that like they did their best, right? They were trying to give me a better life. And I forgive them now, thanks to therapy and lots of talking to my friends about it. So yeah, most of my high school years were me completely going back and forth between being fat and skinny, fat and skinny. If you look at pictures of me in high school, in one picture, I'll be like 140 pounds, and the next picture, I'll be 280 pounds. And they'll only be like a year apart. I was doing drastic things to my body because I didn't feel like I was good enough. I felt like my worth and my value were completely contingent on how I looked. And that's a very dangerous mindset to have when you're already a teenager who's already having all these hormones coursing through your body and you're struggling to figure out where you belong. Fast forward to freshman year of high school. Freshman year of high school, people usually, not freshman year of high school, freshman year of college actually. Freshman year of college, people usually gain 15 pounds when they go to college. For me, I was lucky. I went to an all-girls school and my college was 1.5 miles away from the closest train station. So every day I would go to school and then walk 1.5 miles to the train station and then work full-time at night. Then I would walk 1.5 miles back from the train station, go to sleep, and go to school. Doing this caused me to lose all the weight. Naturally, not on purpose, not an eating disorder, just regular everyday exercise and eating healthy. It was the first time in my life that I had ever lost weight in a healthy way. And it felt good. It felt so good that when my friend Emily said that there was a modeling agency that had been recruiting people who was doing open auditions, she somehow convinced me to go with her. I'm thinking modeling is cool. I'm going to get to feel pretty and glamorous and maybe travel the world. So Emily and I go to the modeling agency and we find out that I'm still too fat to be a real model, but I'm actually the right size to be a real size model. For those of you who don't know, real size modeling is usually around like a size 8, 10. Where you're not a size 4, so you can't be the traditional models, but you're kind of thin for a plus size model. And so I went to the audition. My face was snatched. I'm gonna be honest. I look back on pictures of me. I looked good, okay? And my friend Erica is off to the side watching this and she's laughing. I looked good, okay? The irony is the time in my life where I was traditionally the most beautiful by society standards, is literally the time of my life when I hated myself the most. So I go to this agency, they're poking and they're prodding, they're doing measurements, they're geeking out about my shape, and yeah, we could totally sell her. And black girls are having a moment. That's literally what one of the casting agents said. Black girls are having a moment. And on my 19th birthday, I got offered a modeling contract. For someone who has been struggling to feel beautiful for all these years, you would think a modeling contract would be a dream come true. It wasn't. I had a panic attack. I ran to the bathroom. I threw up. I cried. And it was because the thought that my livelihood was going to be based on my appearance, it was like all my demons coming to nest in this job offer, right? And that night I called the agent and I said, please tear up the contract. I don't want to do this anymore. For about 2 or 3 more years, I struggled with my weight back and forth until I moved to New York. I moved to New York when I was about 22 years old, and I was tired, guys. I was tired of constantly judging myself. I was tired of being convinced that my worth and my value was only based on my appearance. I was tired of people calling me pretty and wanting to sleep with me, but not wanting to hear what I had to say. I was tired of feeling like I was inadequate. And so I came up with another plan. That 7-year-old girl who was coming up with plans, she came back. But this one was a little bit different. My plan was, if being thin wasn't enough to make me happy, if starving myself was making me miserable, I was curious. Up until that point, I had been living under the premise that people only liked me because I was thin and attractive, right? They only liked me because I was curvy with big boobs and a small waist, right? And I said to myself, what if I test that theory? What if I move to New York, eat all the food that I want, have some sex, because up until that point I had been sexually kind of prudish, have a sexual revolution, and just see what life is like without all this perfectionistic bullshit holding me down. So at 22 years old, I moved to New York and decided that I was going to have a lot of food and I was going to fuck and I was going to live and see what happens. This is now the infamous 10-year whole phase that I often reference. It was my eat, pray, fuck, guys. And it was glorious. I would love to tell you, oh no, it was so bad. No, it was great. It was wonderful. Me and my fat ass were out here laying it low and spreading it wide and frolicking. Within 2 or 3 years, I had gained all the weight back plus an extra 50 pounds. Didn't care. Was having the best sex of my life. I realized I'm popping regardless of what weight I am. I was making really amazing friendships. And the funny thing is, the woman that you would have thought I was when I was that girl signing that modeling contract is the woman I actually became when I was 100 pounds heavier. I gave myself permission to make peace with my body. I did lots of journaling. I would look in the mirror. You know how they say, when you're overweight, look in the mirror and see how fat you are, and that's going to motivate you to lose weight? Yeah, no. I was like, yo, this body has carried me this far. This body just had 3 orgasms last night. She might be okay. And this is why I talk about, for me in particular, and I don't recommend this for anybody else, sexual healing was a real part of my healing process, right? Me being this big body girl, like having amazing sex and not apologizing for my stretch marks, not apologizing for my flabby arms, just saying, you know what, if you knew who I was when you wanted to smash, let's go for it. It taught me that I could feel pleasure regardless of what I looked like, and that I wasn't a slave to my body, and that my body was actually my friend and I needed to be appreciative of her. So I learned to be fat and free. And it was stunning at first. My friends were like, God, you got really big. And then they were like, you look really happy though. And it was interesting how those 2 sentences were back to back. First, they would be shocked about the weight that I gained back, but there was a look in my eye that they hadn't seen before, right? There was a look of like me and my body like having this adventure together. And for a long time, I was doing that whole fake it till you make it thing. I was talking the talk. I would say things like, I love being fat, but deep down I was like, I still gotta miss my old body, I'm gonna be honest. But I was faking it, right? I was faking it till I made it. And I would watch people like Monique. Monique used to have this skit that she would do where she would call skinny women fat bitches. She would call skinny women skinny bitches. And I remember thinking to myself, I see what she's going for and the audience is laughing, but I don't want to be that girl. Because I used to be a skinny bitch, right? I didn't want to be the fat girl who thought it made sense to make fun of herself or put down other women who look different. So I vowed that at no point in my experiment would I ever talk about other women's bodies. And the thing that happens when you accept yourself and you tell yourself that you're not allowed to judge others, people can tell that you're being authentic and they gravitate towards you. So suddenly I found myself 100 pounds heavier, Then that goal weight that I've been working so hard for. Having friends who were half my size asking me to give them advice on how to be just as free. Now, I didn't tell them to go to New York and have sex and eat lots of pasta because that was my very specific journey. But I did tell them that it starts with giving yourself permission. Give yourself permission to love your body exactly how it is, even if it's not perfect. In fact, you guys have probably seen some of my posts. Me and the sense of perfection that we live in, I've completely divorced myself from that idea. I think perfection is boring. I think our flaws are what make us really, really, really interesting. And it came to a point where I was walking into rooms and there'd be times where I'd be the only overweight person there. And I would hear someone talk about an overweight person and I'd be like, excuse me, I'm overweight too. And they'd be like, but nah, Blue, you don't count. And I was like, excuse me, what do you mean I don't count? And when I realized what they were saying in a very crude and slightly problematic way was, because I had become so confident and because I was starting to feel worthy, they went blind to their fat phobia. They were making me an exception, right? And some people find comfort in being an exception. I don't, because if I'm the exception, what are you saying about everybody else who looks like me? There's something kind of toxic about that, about tokenism. And so I was like, no, I don't want to be the only fat girl that you think is cute while you're talking crazy about people who look just like me. And so I started doing some research about emotional intelligence. I had already done a couple of writing gigs about emotional intelligence, but now I was ingesting it for myself. And for me, the moment where I knew I was onto something was one day I was watching Oprah. I was on the couch. It was not a teal couch. It was not as nice as this one. I'm watching Oprah, and I actually mentioned the story in my interview with Antonio. Erica's touching the couch, so I'm laughing right now. And when I'm watching Oprah, this woman who is an actress, I don't remember what actress it was. It wasn't Gwyneth Paltrow, because I didn't find her inspiring. It was some beautiful black actress. And she was beautiful and rich and had a good husband and all the things that you're supposed to want. And what she was complaining about on that episode was everything that I had been complaining about to my friend just that afternoon. And I was like, yo, even if you are thin and rich and famous, everybody's going through something. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. This person who looks perfect is going through as much stuff as I am. And that's when I literally divorced myself from any desire to look perfect to others. And I started working on my internal dialogue and how I was talking to myself. I did a couple of radical things. Number one, I forced myself to hold myself accountable without being cruel. Sometimes when we hold ourselves accountable, we think cruelty is the only way to do so. You can be compassionate with yourself and still hold yourself accountable. So my internal dialogue is amazing. I talk to myself the way I would talk to a lover. It's sometimes I tape myself talking to myself so I can listen to it back and get a word twice. Also, I surrounded myself with folks who were completely comfortable with me, right? Because I would meet people who want to date me. They'd be like, yo, I don't date big girls, but I would date you. And I'd be like, no, you're dating me because I'm dope. Don't put an asterisk next to that. And that was my rule. Don't act like I'm an asterisk. I am a fully fleshed person. I don't need disclaimers for why you think I'm attractive. I'm attractive because I'm attractive, right? And as I got bolder in my internal dialogue and in the way that I was pushing back against others who wanted to put me in a box, I started to think, I don't think I'm faking it anymore. Like, I think what I'm saying, I actually mean it. But there was one day where my theory finally got tested. And this is the day that I feel is kind of like a graduation of sorts. It was a couple years ago. I don't remember. I think it might have been 2015, 2016? I don't know. I have to look it up. There was a movie coming out called Dear White People that's produced by Lena Waithe. And it had an Indiegogo campaign where people were donating money for the movie. The movie far exceeded what it was supposed to make. And so opening night, me and a bunch of my friends who had donated to the film, we all decided that we were going to be celebrating by watching it on opening night at the blackest and most popular movie theater in DC, Chinatown. Erica, you were in DC. You know the Chinatown. I'm talking to Erica. You're allowed to talk. Was Chinatown not the poppin' theater, like the Gallery Place Chinatown Theater in DC? So many people. When I tell you every black person, I felt like every black person on that October night showed up to see Dear White People at the Chinatown Gallery Place Theater in Washington, D.C. And D.C.'s already chocolate city to begin with, right? So I'm at the blackest movie of the year, in the blackest city in America outside of Atlanta, on the opening to see a black ass movie that black people actually donated money to see. So you know it was like basically like prom. So 9 of us walk in there. Yeah, it was me and 8 other people. So 9 of us walk in, and some people had to go to the bathroom. Some had to get like parking tickets. Some had to get snacks. Suddenly I realized I was the only person who was going to be available to hold the seats. And my friends were like, Blue, you're one person. Are you sure that you could hold 9 seats by yourself. And at this point, my bravado was on 10, right? I was like, hell yeah, who's gonna check me? Hell yeah, I can hold a 9. I could hold this whole theater by myself. Lies. So I walk into the theater and I sit down and I put a purse every other seat, a coat every, just showing that there's people sitting here. And I'm sitting in the middle seat. So let's say there's 9 seats. I'm like in seat 4 or 5, right? I'm sitting down and I'm holding court and the theater is filling up and filling up and filling up. Suddenly this young lady shows up and she's wearing this rumpled Howard University sweatshirt. Her hair is all matted in like a nappy bun, and she has bags under her eyes. She looks tired, right? I'm thinking she probably has like exams or something, and this is like her one night to like get out the house and see the sun. Her boyfriend is with her, carrying all the popcorn. Erica's laughing because Erica knows what it's like to study. So her boyfriend's with her, and he's carrying all the popcorn in their coats, and she's just walking up looking for seats. When she sees my glorious 9 seats, her eyes light up. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna have to break this young girl's heart. Because none of these seats are for you. None of them. No seats for you. She walks up to the seats, gets 1 foot into the aisle, and I'm like, sorry, love, these are all taken. And she's like, oh, okay. And then she walks out to go look for more seats. I don't know what bit of stupid or crazy jumped into her body, but suddenly she's like, actually, no, fuck that. Like she literally screamed, actually, no, fuck that. Did a 180, turned back and said, I'm taking this fucking seat, and proceeds to try to sit down. At this point, let me tell you something about me, okay? I might have the body of a Care Bear, but I have the mind of an athlete. I slid into that seat so quickly, she would have to sit on my face and become my girlfriend to have that seat. You understand me? So she's like, excuse me? I was like, I told you these 9 seats are taken, as evidenced by the bags and the coats. She looks at me and this fury, when you can tell that somebody's stomach is flipping and they're about to let themselves have permission to be a donkey? She looks at me with the rage, the heat of 1,000 suns, and she squares up her body and she says, shut the fuck up, you stupid fat bitch. Gallery Place, Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that sounds like DC.
Opening night. Room full of nothing but black and brown people. Suddenly, 250 black and brown people simultaneously stopped talking. You could have heard a pin drop. I said, excuse me? She said, you heard me? Shut up, you stupid fat bitch. And I looked at her and her sweatshirt and the bags under her eyes. And I'm not even talking about the struggle ponytail. And I looked at her and I was like, yo, she's having a bad day. This doesn't have shit to do with me. But one thing I do know is she's not getting on these fucking seats. So I don't know what flashed across my face, but I looked at her, I was like, for your safety, you should probably get up. Her boyfriend looked at me and saw that I was not with the shits and dragged her up the seat and dragged her out. And all of a sudden I hear a voice in the back say, oh snap, they called her a stupid fat bitch and she didn't give a fuck. And everybody in the theater starts laughing. And when he said that, I was like, he's right. I just get called a stupid fat bitch in front of 200 and something black people. And no part of me felt hurt. No part of me winced. No part of me felt less than. No part of me felt offended. I was like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. And mind you, I look cute that day. You couldn't tell me shit. So I was like, yeah, this ain't got nothing to do with me. She's having a bad day. And in that moment, I flashed back to 10 years earlier when I was a size 6/8 at the height of my eating disorder at a movie theater with my homegirls. And one of my homegirls was like, isn't that the boy that you like? And I was so embarrassed by her saying that, I blacked out and cussed her out so bad they called the cops. And so I thought to myself, 10 years ago, someone saying something slightly annoying that could barely be heard by anybody made me have a rage. Like I literally had a tantrum and the police got called. 10 years later, I'm being called a stupid fat bitch in front of hundreds of people, and I didn't feel anything but peace. And that is the exact moment when I knew that I was no longer faking it till I made it, that I had made it, and that I had actually learned to love myself, and I had stopped taking anything that anybody had to say personal. And it felt amazing. Like when my friends came back with all their popcorn and whatever, I was smiling. I was like, yo, I sincerely love myself. That girl who was starving herself and felt like shit, the girl who did that experiment, I had graduated. It felt like a graduation day. To this day, whenever I see Dear White People, I think back to that day and how good it felt. So my friends walk up and they're like, why are you smiling? I was like, oh, this girl wanted the seats and she got mad and she called me a super fat bitch. Now, they didn't receive that story the way that I received it. I'm smelling like, isn't that great? They're like, hell no, it's not great. Mind you, some of them were state troopers and cops. I had a lot of cop friends back then. And I really feel like one of them wanted to reach for a host. Like, wait, who's this bitch? They all got so angry. Like, nah, point her out. This is DC, so we clap when we mad. Who is she? Who called you a fat bitch? We can fix this right now. My friends are now going crazy. So now I'm like, uh-oh, I might be having a Zen moment. But my homies haven't been through the process that I've been through, and they wanna murk this chick. So I walk out to security. The security guard, imagine like Carl Winslow from Family Matters. Just a nice, cute little tubby brown man. I walk up to him, I was like, hey, there was an altercation inside. My friends are very upset for the young lady's safety. I think you might want to check on her because my friends are mad. And he was like, well, what happened? I tell him this story. He gets upset. She called you a what? No, fuck that. I'm like, sir, you're supposed to be security. Like, calm down. At this point, the security guard's mad. Suddenly, he and I decide that we're going to walk in and confront her quietly. We walk into the theater. I point out where she is. He walks over to her and her boyfriend and says, come with me. And they escort her out the theater, and the whole theater erupts in applause. And they all clap as this poor young girl and her boyfriend are escorted out. They didn't get to see the movie that day. Fuck a seat. They got no seats. They sat in the car. When everybody's applauding, I'm looking around like, wow, I'm the only person in the scenario that's not upset. And I'm the super fat bitch in question. Like, how is it I'm the only one who's not upset? Oh, God, that was a great day. That was such a good day. We saw the movie. The movie was wonderful. It later got turned into a Netflix series. I think it's on season 2 or 3 now. And then we went to happy hour. We had drinks. I had such a good day because it was the day that I realized that I had really completely felt comfortable in my body and in my skin. Moving forward, my friends and I, when we would talk back on that day, they were like, we don't understand how you weren't upset. You should have been upset on principle. And I was like, no, like the peace that I had found from that is a peace that like nobody can take from me. They've tried. Oh, honey, they have tried. But like that peace, it belongs to me and me only. Now, fast forward to now. Now I've left DC and I'm in LA, and I'm a journalist, right? And I write all these pieces that sometimes go viral and this, that, and the other, and I run workshops and et cetera. And suddenly I'm being put in front of the camera for the first time rather than just being a writer behind the scenes. And I'm very aware that people are going to have a reaction to seeing me on camera. And again, didn't care. I don't read comment sections, but on occasion when I'm asked to, because Melissa likes me to know what people are saying, and I have friends who'll be like, oh, I went in your comment section, you're getting so much love, go look, go look. I'm going through comment sections, and I was like, oh, I am getting a lot of love, cool. But every once in a while, there's that person, like that girl in that theater, who assumes that I'm insecure about something that I've already made peace with, who wants to call me a super fat bitch, and it always feels good how much I don't care. I will say, though, there was one time recently where, as you can see now, the camera's tight right now, but I love pillows. I'm a Taurus. I'm surrounded by pillows and blankets and candles and tea at all times. Yeah, you know Tauruses love cozy. Yeah, I'm a cozy motherfucker, okay? I have a sharp mouth, but I'm soft everywhere else. And so whenever I'm at home, I'm always surrounded by pillows like Cleopatra, right? Same thing on camera. I'm always surrounded by pillows because it makes me feel cozy. This young lady came into my comment section recently, actually. She's probably going to watch this video. And she was like, oh, you have a pillow on your lap again. I'm so relieved that I don't do that anymore, but I really love your content. So I was confused by that statement. So I said, I love pillows on my lap. Taurus gang, hashtag, like what's good. I am assuming that for you, pillows mean something not good. So I guess congratulations that you don't like pillows anymore, but I still love them. Thanks for watching my show. And she responds, oh no, well when I was fat, I would put pillows on me to hide my body. I just assumed that's what you were doing too. That went right over my head. My vibration does not, I don't vibrate that low. So I'm happy it went over my head. I should actually say it went under my feet. I don't vibrate that low. So I was like, oh, so you were throwing shade. You were saying, oh, I see you got another pillow on you, super fat bitch. And I'm happy that I don't have pillows on me because I'm no longer a super fat bitch. And I like your content. No, I'm like, okay, that's a shady comment. But I love that I was vibrating so high, I didn't even understand what she was saying. So I was like, oh, girl, yeah, nah. When I was half my size, I still was surrounded by pillows. I was signing a modeling contract, surrounded by pillows. I'm gonna probably die loving pillows, but yeah, I'm happy that you've made peace with whatever you and the pillow monster has done to you. Enjoy your day. Somebody else wrote in like, you lucky Blue's a good person because you just tried it, bitch. Like somebody else got upset, right? And that's become the norm for me where when people come for me because they assume that me being the fat girl, oh, I'm so fat, it's gonna hurt my feelings. Let me tell you, there have been so many people who called me fat ass and then didn't know that their boyfriend had tried to holler at me on the low. There have been so many people, so many times I've walked into an audition and it's been nothing but Instagram models. And because of who I am and how I show up, I booked the gig. And I've really, really gotten like a sick kind of pleasure from seeing how many rooms of fatphobic people that I can walk into and own by the time I walk out. So for all of you out there who are asking, Blue, why are you so confident? I'm confident because I proved to myself over a 10-year time period that no matter what size I was, my desirability, my lovability, and my value was never up for debate. And it's crazy because I wish Skinny Blue. I wish that girl on her 19th birthday who was having the panic attack in the bathroom and throwing up. I wish the girl who was slapping Cheez-Its out of her homegirl's face and saying, don't eat that because the worst thing you could ever be in this world as a woman is being fat. Lies. The worst thing you could ever be as a woman is being basic and self-loathing. I wish that girl could see who I am now. Number one, she would look at me and be mortified and be like, oh my God, look what you did to yourself. But number two, she'd probably eventually ask me for some advice about how to start liking herself more too. And so I had a friend who I told I was gonna make this video, and he said, no, Blue, don't make the video until you lose the weight because then it'll be like this like beautiful like after picture, like look how far I've come. Because you guys know I'm training for a half marathon. Fuck that, okay? I'm putting this on the record right now. Fat Blue, medium blue, skinny blue, braids blue, bald-headed blue, they're all amazing. I wanted to intentionally make this video at this size because I want people to know that you don't always have to be a miserable before picture. What if instead of having a miserable before picture and a really happy after picture, they're both just two happy people who have evolved in their process, right? I love this body. This body has taught me so much about compassion. It's taught me so much about how shallow people can be. It's taught me so much about what it's like to be underappreciated and have people sleep on you. There have been so many people in my life who have slept on me when I was one size who suddenly wanted to be in my life when I got thinner. I love the education that I got from this body. I love the lessons that I learned from this body. I love the sex that I had in this body. And I don't ever want to have a before picture where I'm saying, oh God, I can't believe I used to look like that. I love the way I look now. I'm going to love the way I look in September when I run the half marathon. So for anybody who's watching this, who is thinking, oh God, I want to hide until I reach my goal weight, fuck that. You're worthy now, and you're just even happier with yourself for having an accomplishment, but don't be happier for yourself just because you look different, right? Because anybody who needs you to look a certain way to love you doesn't really love you. And there have been times in my past, for all my exes who've been lurking, because I know you have, I've heard through the grapevine. Erica's laughing. I know some of y'all been watching. I've had exes in the past who told me in not so subtle ways, yo, if you could just lose that weight, yo, you'd be unstoppable. We'd be unstoppable. And you know what I would do whenever they would tell me that? I would intentionally not lose weight. Because I will be fucking damned if I lose weight in order to appease somebody else. Anything I do, I'm doing it for me, and I'm leading by example. There's nothing more revolutionary in this world than a Black woman who cannot be shamed. So yes, this is Blue, before picture Blue, happy as hell. And Dom, a year from now, we're going to do a split screen, okay? A year from now, we're going to do this video over. I'm going to wear the same shirt. It's probably going to be swimming on me, but still. A year from now, after I run the half marathon, I'm going to do the same video. And even if my body and my hair and my face is more snatched, I miss my face, though. The one thing I miss about being thin is how snatched my face was, because you couldn't tell me shit when my chin went away. Child. Ooh, I'm a face queen, so I miss my old face. That's the only thing I miss is my old face. But a year from now, when you guys see me do a video just like this, wearing a cute yellow top, you're going to notice that I'm going to look different, but I'm probably going to sound the same. Because the me that you're getting is a me that I'm committed to being, regardless of what I look like. And I hope that in some way, by seeing how unapologetic I am, I'm giving you permission to do the same. So yeah, for all those you guys who asked me, where did you get your confidence from? I got my confidence from myself. And I hope you do the same thing. Until next time, this was a very special story time episode of Humanized. All the other questions that you guys asked me, I'll do a separate Q&A video. And guys, like I always say, be good to yourselves. I really mean it. Be good to yourselves. Bye.